just always seems to happen, doesn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. St Mirren 1, Celtic 5. In the 55th minute, there was a real good chance for Rangers fans that the gap was going to close, that they could get a little bit closer. There was maybe a chance of sparking something. Come 35 minutes, 45 minutes later, they were even further behind than they were in the first place. That just says it all about Celtic's second half performance this afternoon. Wow. Unbelievable from Celtic. A stadium where we know we've kind of struggled in the last couple of years. 1 point out of a possible 6. To go down 1-0 in the first half, to have your back against the wall going into half-time, knowing that pressure's sort of on you to try and get a result at St Mirren Park, to then go out and in the space of 35 minutes and score 5 goals, it speaks volumes about Celtic at this moment in time. And yeah, say what you want about St Mirren being down to 10 men. If anything, I was expecting a more difficult game with St Mirren being down to 10, a more defensive unit, more men packed in and around the area. You can say what you like about the 10 men aspect of the game, but Celtic showed unbelievable character and an unbelievable kind of showcase of what we're all about in that second half there, and that last 35 minutes of the game, to dig in and beat the defensive trap that was St Mirren this afternoon. As I said, we expect it at this point, but it still kind of takes you by a little bit of disbelief is in there when we do these things, because I think in years gone by, you'd watch as we struggled. We struggled, don't get me wrong, first half, leading up to we got our first goal, we weren't great. We did struggle, we didn't show the characteristics of a side that we normally do, but the way that we done it, it shouldn't be a surprise anymore, but just keep doing it, Celtic. Right, we've got a lot to discuss in regards to today's game, a lot of talking points, especially in that first half, some controversial calls, you could say. So I'm going to try and get through it all and try and keep this match reaction as brief as possible at the same time, because the F1's back at 3 o'clock. I want to get away watching it. So let's get into the first half. First of all, team selection I thought was spot on. There was a lot of kind of rumbling and grumbling on Twitter to Haksabanovic being left on the bench, and you know, as much, you know me, biggest Haksabanovic fan on earth. I love him with all my heart. There was no chance he was going to be starting the game today. It would have been nice. But, you know, the manager's picking his best team at the minute. The team that's been basically playing week in, week out. There's no reason as to why Ange would have just went out on a limb and decided to make that change. I think especially at a venue where we have struggled under Ange's tenure. So I think that it was no surprise to me. A lot of people moaning on social media, but ho-hum, we got in there anyway. Started the game poorly, didn't we? First half, we didn't really seem ourselves. I think we've seen a lot of the same traits from Celtic in the first half today that were very resemblant of us, you know, when Lennon was struggling anyway. But remember those kind of couple of portions of time when Ange's side were, quotation marks, struggling. We go back to St Mirren in September. We go back to the start of the first season under Ange, and there was a lot of this crossing the ball into 6-foot centre halves and hoping for the best. There was a lot of that in that first half today, and it was really frustrating me, because we've evolved from that. We've got better than that, and we've learned how to play football in a way that kind of takes that need for just constantly crossing and hoping for the best out of the game. But today it seemed like we were putting the ball out wide, we were hoping for our fullbacks or our wingers to be in an area for a cross, and then we'd send it in and one of St Mirren's defenders were dealing with it. And that seemed like it just kept occurring in the first half, and it was really getting on my nerves. I was like, okay, take it through the middle, play some football. But you've got to be fair to St Mirren on that side of things. They set up really well in the first half. They defended really, really well. Let's give them their credit where it's due. For a minute or two, they set up in a way that kind of forced Celtic to maybe take it out to those wider areas, but I thought we just looked a little bit panicky or something. Like every time we sent in a cross, I can't count on one hand the amount of crosses that were blocked, especially in Greg Taylor's side. Taylor sent in about 3 crosses in the first half that were hitting off the first man and barely taken off the ground. We just seemed very rushed, panicky. We didn't seem like we were playing the same football we know we can play, and maybe we were forced into that with the fact we were 1-0 down 5 minutes into the game. I don't know what it was, but the first half was completely different from the second half. We'll come on to that. The big talking points that we have to talk about from the first half are the penalty decisions, both on St Mirren's side and on Celtic's side. Andy Walker was waxing lyrical at half-time, rallying a lot of support from the Celtic fans for his views on the apparent penalty for St Mirren. I'm probably going to get murdered here for saying it. I'm not stunned a penalty was given. I'm not bothered a penalty was given. In fact, I expected a penalty to be given. And that's not me saying that, yeah, absolute stonewaller, even though I probably lean more to the penalty side than the non-penalty side. It's just the fact we've got to the point now where I can't read what natural position is and how far a man should be away from the ball. What I seen was the ball coming up, hitting Greg Taylor's hand quite clearly in the box. I knew it was going to be a penalty. And I knew there was no point in taking to Twitter to voice my annoyance or my fucking how aggrieved I was by the fact a penalty was given. I think it was a penalty. I don't think it's one of those ones that's, you know, I can see why people don't think it is. Understandably, you know, hand, natural position, he is about centimetres away from the ball. What is he meant to do with his hand? Chop it off. We've seen it before. But at this point, I'm just like, do you know what? If it just gets it over and done with, just fucking move on with it. It's a hard one. The referee's obviously been forced to make a decision. The big talking point from the penalty is obviously the length of time it took them to go to the screen and decide. They waited ages to go and stop the play and then go over and check on the screen, and that was one of the big talking points. That was annoying. If the referee's being told in his ear that it's clear and obvious, he should go over to the screen and check it. Surely just stop the play at a suitable point. Just stop the play and do it like they're meant to do, rather than wait. He waited and waited and waited. I think it was a foul that finally got him to go over and check the screen. That's the thing that annoyed me the most out of all of it. And see, do you know what? See, another day, see if we didn't win 5-1, maybe I would be on here and maybe I would be shouting and moaning about the penalty being given. But as soon as I seen the replay back and I seen it hit Taylor's hand, I for one just put my hands up and went, do you know what? Penalty. Just, I didn't see a point in arguing it. I don't know the rules anymore. They need a consistency back in the game. That's the kind of decision that, you know, last week, if it was to happen at Hampden, a penalty probably wouldn't have been given on our part. I just find it impossible to read at this point. And then Celtic's penalty that was disallowed, well, not disallowed, it was taken off us and given as a free kick, also resulted to as a red card for Dunn, who brought down Kyogo. It wasn't a penalty. It was outside the area, let's be real. I know that it drags on into the area, but the initial contact and the majority of the fall as well is outside the box. Once again, I think you can take your green tinted specs off for a second and probably admit that. Watch it back 100 times, and if you still think it's a penalty, fair enough, I'm not going to argue on it, but it was outside the area for me. It's still a definite red card, no doubt about it. You know, you can't do that. You can't pull down a player who's going to go one-on-one with a keeper and expect to get away with it. It's a clear goal-scoring opportunity. So I guess justice was served in the sense of, yeah, they got a man sent off. We didn't get given the penalty. Once again, watching the highlights back, I just knew it wasn't going to be given as a pen. But yeah, that was my opinion to the two big first half incidents. I can tell that a lot of Celtic fans will probably be disagreeing with me, perhaps on both of the shouts. But I guess the second half more than makes up for it anyway, doesn't it? Night and day stuff, that second half performance. We were just a different animal. And I thought the substitutions had a big part to play in that. The biggest being Leia Labada, who came on for Dyson Maeda at half-time. Now, by all means, I don't think Dyson Maeda had a bad game. But what I will say is I think he made the spot-on substitution. A lot of people wanted Jota hooked, and Jota was having a very poor game. Up until he scored, he needed that goal, didn't he? Up until Jota scored, he was having a really poor game. And a lot of people would have hooked him and would have taken him off and probably kept Maeda in the park. But for the kind of game that we were about to enter in that second half, St Mirren being down to 10, camping every man behind the ball, just blocking that area, Dyson Maeda wasn't going to be as effective as he normally would be, whereas Jota, with the ability he has with the ball at his feet to cut inside in those smaller spaces, he's got far more ability than what Dyson Maeda has in a game like that. Now, there's no denying that. It's just fact. Dyson Maeda's a fantastic player. There are two very, very different players down that left-hand side. And the perfect combination for that second half was Jota and Leia Labada. Ange got it spot on at half-time. Both of those players are brilliant in those smaller spaces, those cramped areas, which we were going to experience in the second half. And Abada, I thought he brought a real change to the game. I thought he was brilliant in the second half. Of course, he got a goal as well a little bit later on. But for me, he just forced a real change. But it was about finding that goal as soon as possible. I did not want to see the second half drag on at 1-0 for a lengthy amount of time. Obviously, the longer it goes on, the harder it gets. Pretty simple. But that goal was huge, and it was huge for Celtic. It was huge for Jota. It's a brilliant wee finish. I know he just kind of kicks it into the net while he's on the deck, but you look at the angle he's sitting at, and the ball doesn't really fall for him the cleanest of manners. And the way he kind of squeezes it round and in at that angle, it's brilliant. And it was huge. It lifted us into another sort of place in our game, I thought, and it really just urged us on to now find an exposed St Mirren and go from there. So the goal was huge, and 10 minutes into the second half, it was needed at that moment in time. I think if we had to wait any longer, once again we might have found ourselves in that sort of same panicky situation we were as the first half dragged on. So I was glad that we found the goal when we did. After that, it was back to normal for Celtic. It was the Celtic we're used to, we love seeing. Johnston got his first goal for the club, and I must say, before this video goes on any longer, I thought that Alistair Johnston was absolutely tremendous today. For me, maybe man of the match, both defensively and offensively. I thought he was just brilliant today, Alistair Johnston, and I'm so chuffed to see him get his goal, running away, celebrating, his face, it was magic. It brought a tear to an eye for me. He was brilliant today. He's just such a unit. He doesn't muck about. He just gets stuck right in. He gives it his all. And he's a tough player to beat, you know what I mean? For any winger that's running at Johnson, they've got a challenge in their hands. And then when he's running with the ball or he's moving forward, they've also got a chance. He's a big battering ram. You know, he might not be the biggest guy in the world in terms of his height and such, but he's got kind of that physical presence, a wee bit sturdy. And he's got that ability to go forward, to score goals, to make goals. And then he's just got all the defence, the interceptions, the tackles. He's the perfect package for an Ange Postecoglou right back. And we spoke about that recently on the channel. I spoke about how I think that Johnston, for as good as Juranovic was, he might be a better fit for Celtic than what Juranovic was, just for what he brings to the team and his traits as a player. I think he's certainly a better defensive player than what Josip Juranovic was. And that's going off, 2 months now at the club? I genuinely think he might be. And he was just brilliant today. Absolutely chuffed to see him get his first goal and put us in a really commanding position at 2-1, and there was really no way back from there for St Mirren. Being at 10 men, us being 2-1 up, I honestly didn't think we'd go on to score 5, but we did. Abad O'Reilly and O getting the penalty as well. What a weird run-up, by the way, from O for the penalty, wasn't it? It was a really, really weird run-up. But those 3 chipping in. 5 goals in 35 minutes from 5 different scorers. If that doesn't say it all about Celtic at this moment in time, then I don't know what does. I mean, all you have to do is look at the stats from today. 83% possession, 16 shots against their 1 shot, 8 shots on target against their 1 shot target. They converted their only shot, and it was a penalty. If we didn't win today, it would have been robbery, but it's good that, you know, we talk about St Mirren being a difficult place to go with Ange. This is our first win here now, our first in 3 attempts. People are saying we've broke the curse. I think it would be harsh to call it a curse after, you know, only 2 games there where we haven't won. But it is good that we have won there now. It's good that that's ticked off the list. Ange has now won everywhere he could possibly go in Scotland. So I'm buzzing for that. I'm glad that we've kind of got past that. It is psychologically something at play. Maybe not so much in the players' minds and Ange's mind. I'm sure it never bothered them going into this game. But for fans, it does certainly have a psychological impact when you see these kind of statistics and you're waiting for that result. So I'm glad it's happened now. I'm glad it takes a little bit of weight off our chests. But we would have been really, really shortchanged of anything today if we didn't find the 3 points. I think that's basically everything that I wanted to cover from today's game. Obviously, the big talking points being those penalty calls in the first half. I'm glad Celtic finally did get round to getting a penalty. It feels like we always wait ages for them. But, listen, happy as Larry. We're still 9 clear, even though some may have thought otherwise come the 55th minute today. I'm absolutely buzzing. So, roll on the next game. I think, is it a midweek next? It's a Hearts on Wednesday night. And then Hearts again at the weekend. Is that right? I think it is. Wow. Christ, roll on. Right, we'll see you midweek then. Cheerio. Like and subscribe.